Viewer discretion is advised, as this story has been presented without any alterations to preserve its original context.
I searched for the remote but couldn't find it. Then I remembered it had fallen when I stood up earlier. I bent on my knees and started looking under the bed for the remote. As I went deeper, my dog jumped behind me and suddenly started having sex with me. It went straight into my hole. A weird story that happened to me and my dog. As I was bending over to reach the remote, my dog jumped behind me and it entered straight inside. This is a real life story that actually happened, shared by the writer herself, recounting her strange experience and the ultimate lesson she learned from it. This video does not promote such activities, but aims to educate viewers about the possible outcomes. Viewer discretion advised. This story contains sensitive and graphic content. I want to share with you a very weird story that I experienced with my dog when I was just 14 years old. It all started when I was alone, watching TV on my parents' bed. It was just a normal show, not an adult-rated one or anything like that. I was only 14 at the time, and I remember that moment like it was yesterday. I had a dog, and I'm not going to mention his breed. But at my age, he was quite big. He could easily reach behind me if we went into doggy style. I never expected what was about to happen that day. As I was watching TV, the telephone rang. Back then, there were no smartphones, so I jumped up right away to answer it. But as I did, the remote control fell and bounced deep down into my parents' bed. I didn't get the remote and just ran to answer the phone. It was my classmate inviting me to come over for some kind of celebration they were having. From the excitement, I immediately took a shower. After I finished, I was just wearing a towel with no panties yet. I realized the TV in my parents' room was still on, so I decided to turn it off before getting dressed. I searched for the remote but couldn't find it. Then I remembered it had fallen when I stood up earlier. I bent on my knees and started looking under the bed for the remote. As I went deeper, my dog jumped behind me and suddenly started having sex with me. It went straight into my hole. It was very painful and I couldn't push him off easily. He kept going, no matter how much I screamed at him to stop. I was a virgin, and so was my dog. It really hurt, but I couldn't do anything. I just cried, not knowing if it was from pain or the fact that my virginity was being taken by a dog. When he stopped, probably because he had already ejaculated inside me, he didn't pull out. It was still painful, but I didn't understand why he was still inside me. I forced myself to crawl out from under the bed. I couldn't remove his penis from inside me. I felt so panicked, not knowing what to do. I thought about my parents coming home and seeing us like that. I tried pulling it out, but it hurt, and I saw a bit of blood, making me even more scared. I thought I was going to die and told myself I couldn't die like this. I didn't want anyone to see my dead body naked with a dog. I was crying as I clearly saw his penis inside me. I felt so broken and didn't know what to do. I couldn't pull it out. It was locked in there and I didn't know why. It felt like it had gotten bigger than when it was inserted. I later researched and found out that a dog's penis does get bigger after ejaculation. So my thought is that he really did ejaculate inside me. I was just lucky I didn't get pregnant by the dog. While this was a very traumatic experience, I also remember feeling something positive. I became aware of sexual pleasure for the first time, even amidst the pain and fear. The dog's penis being inside me felt violating, but also sparked new sensations. Somehow, his penis eventually came out on its own. It was very slimy, and a lot of slimy stuff came out of my vagina after. Seeing this made me feel grossed out, but also a strange sense of relief. I cleaned myself up as best I could. When my parents got home, I acted like nothing happened. But I couldn't sleep that night thinking about it over and over. It took a few days to physically recover. Every time I thought about it, I felt a mix of shame, violation, and also curiosity. I started masturbating a lot, almost to the point of addiction. The masturbation felt good, but also made me feel guilty. I wondered if the dog had changed me somehow. Years passed, and I started fantasizing about doing it with the dog again. I knew it was wrong, but I was curious. One day, I made a plan to actually do it again. My parents were gone for the weekend, so I wouldn't have to worry about them coming home. I was very horny and decided to go through with it. I put a lot of oil inside my vagina first, just to be safe. I washed and cleaned the dog and used a condom. I knew I could have sex with a man instead, but I wanted to try it with the dog again for some reason. I felt both nervous and excited as I prepared. I got into doggy style position and let the dog penetrate me. It felt good at first, and I even masturbated while he was inside me. It felt pleasurable, better than using my fingers. But then something bad happened. The dog's penis got stuck inside me again, even bigger than before. My vagina felt very stretched and painful, despite the oil. The memories of the trauma came rushing back. I started panicking, realizing I had made a mistake. But I reminded myself I was alone and didn't need to worry about getting caught. I waited patiently for the penis to come out on its own. I even laughed at the absurdity of my situation as I watched in the mirror. After a while, it became very uncomfortable. I told myself I wouldn't do this again, that the pleasure wasn't worth the consequences. I couldn't even get off the bed. It hurt so much. But the dog was calm, so that wasn't an issue. Suddenly, the dog heard a noise outside and forcefully pulled away, tearing my vagina. I saw a lot of blood gushing out almost non-stop. I felt so traumatized, not knowing what to do. I managed to clean up and stop the bleeding eventually. I vowed to never try this again. Looking back, I learned that curiosity and horniness can lead you to do dangerous things. I got lucky and didn't suffer worse consequences. I hope anyone reading this can learn from my mistakes. Experimenting with animals is never a good idea, no matter how tempting it may seem. There are safer and healthier ways to explore your sexuality.